Hello, everyone, and welcome to FI News Review. In this segment, we cover significant news items within the food and beverage industry. Don't forget to check out our sister segment, FI Spotlight, where we interview guest experts on various food industry issues. That airs on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. All right, let me bring in this week's fellow observer here, Ron Tanner of the Tanner Food Group. Ron, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Susan, and I appreciate you having me on the show today.
And it is a pleasure having you. Okay, let's get us started. So this episode, today, we're going to be looking at the dichotomy of eating trends in America. On the one hand, you have the wellness industry, from supplements to specific ingredients and beyond. And on the other hand, you have a continually dominant presence of things like ultra-processed foods, and as well as, the love of snacking. You have, so many other, things pointing to, continued love of indulgence. So, Ron, first question, what recent news stories have you been seeing that make you think about confusion in the way Americans eat?
Susan, I think there's always been confusion in the way Americans eat. Many times, I remember back in the office 10 years ago, people would have a salad for lunch and they would be very, very healthy for about 3 hours. And then they'd go get a piece of chocolate cake at 4 o'clock. And some of the stories in the Food Institute newsletter this week, made me think about that. The New York Times had a story saying that 60% of calories for US consumers come from ultra high processed food. Those are defined as foods which really have a lot of stuff in them. The basic definition to look at is it's an ultra high processed food if there is an ingredient list that is not something that you would use in home cooking. So a lot of those are snack foods, a lot of those are frozen foods, but 60% of calories come from that, and 70% of packaged food in the US is from ultra high processed food. In the same day, another story talked about the glucose goddess and how people are monitoring their blood sugar to determine how they should eat. Some of that has to do with talking about, the ways that you eat, maybe eating your vegetables first, maybe having a savory breakfast. But a lot of great information there for people that are really looking at eating a lot healthier. So it's kind of, people are just not eating well. Some people are eating well. Some people are eating well for half the day, not eating well for the rest of the day. And even in the evening when people might partake of a beverage, it was noted in the Food Institute report this week that the beer in Whole Foods is the most popular beer is a non-alcoholic beer called Athletic. But from some of my other work, I know that bourbon is actually increasing in sales substantially in the US. So just a real mix in the way people are looking at how they're putting food into their bodies.
Exactly. Some great examples there of that so-called dichotomy in the US diet. Ron, going back to that Wall Street Journal article that you referenced to, certainly very interesting. I read that as well, and they were detailing the current craze, so to speak, about monitoring glucose level, amongst non-diabetics. Ron, what are your thoughts on weight loss drugs? The extreme popularity of Ozempic. How has that impacted the U.S. diet?
It's impacted the way people are thinking about the US diet. Ozempic and other weight loss drugs do help people lose weight. Some of the stats say that 15% of Americans have used Ozempic for weight loss. That's a lot of people, but a lot of them have stopped using it for weight loss as well, which I think relates a lot to the price. The biggest prescriptions for Ozempic are in the southern states where there is a bigger obesity problem. 42% of Americans are considered obese. 2% of the people in Kentucky are prescribed Ozempic, 1.8% in Tennessee, and it goes down from there. So although it is a big story and a lot of people have been using it, I think the continuation of people using it is not as strong as people would think that it would be.
So with all of this going on, with all that we've discussed, Ron, in your view, how do people balance, a lifestyle of, healthy eating with indulgence?
I think they eat healthy and they eat indulgent sometimes. I was at the recent Winter Fancy Food Show, as you were, Susan, and there were a lot of healthy products there, which were identified by Trends as a Specialty Food Association. They talked about mushrooms, which has an umami flavor. You can eat a mushroom coffee. There's a lot of beans out there, which are better for you protein, better than having that cheeseburger. And buckwheat crackers, which are gluten-free and are very good for the soil. They're a super seed. So a lot of those products which are very, very healthy for you. But you also saw at the show, you saw a lot of macaroni and cheese, lobster macaroni and cheese, super rich macaroni and cheese. So people are going back to these indulgent treats that are there, which I think kind of shows both ways you can do it. If you want a creme brulee, better to have a creme brulee that's going to be controlled rather than a larger creme brulee. And I think too, you're seeing that in snack foods, a lot of people getting the portion packs. So people are really, those potato chips look good. People are actually, and that's one of my indulgences actually, people are, trying to control it. It's called mindful snacking in some studies which have been done, or mindful indulgence, which really means you are indulging. You might be eating an Oreo cookie. You might be eating a chocolate to make yourself feel good, but you're taking some time and thinking about it while you do it. It's not something you're just doing as a habit. It's something that you're doing and you're realizing that it's important to you, but it's still indulgent and not particularly healthy.
All right, Ron Tanner of Tanner Food Group. Ron, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, you can check out all the great content that we've done by clicking on this playlist. Till next time, I'm Susan Choi. Take care and have a great weekend.